catching it. We're not realizing it. We're not seeing it. Reveal that to me, that I can confess it. So much could have been so different in the life of Saul if he would have submitted to God, if he would have sought the Lord instead of, as he did, directly turning away from him. Well, the next point here, point number 3, okay, so first one was foe, second one is facts, now it's friend. But I'm going to say that and put it as, it's not really true. Because now Saul is going to be, okay, we can spare his life. He's going to be his friend, but it's not really his friend. Verse 6, and Saul hearkened unto the voice of Jonathan, and Saul sware. Okay, a commitment right there. Right? As the Lord I love, I don't know if any of that's true in his mind. He shall not be slain. But he is calling God as a witness to his commitment, as a foundation to his commitment. Well, for the time being, Saul's going to listen. Reason seems to have returned to Saul, at least for the moment. Jonathan's reasoning with Saul, it paid off. Saul made a commitment to, he swear, seems like he's actually serious. As sure as Jehovah God is a living God, he makes this commitment, right? Well, we must remember this, as I was already kind of referring to. Does he even respect God? Does he even love God? He's bringing God into the situation, but does he mean anything by it? Well, God was certainly lacking in the life of Saul. We understand already that God had set Saul aside, but it was because Saul set God aside. That's where the whole thing started. Look at verse 7. And Jonathan called David. And Jonathan showed him all those things. Oh, hey, I have good news for you, right? And Jonathan brought David to Saul, and he was in his presence as at other times. Boy, what a ticklish situation, right? Oh, yeah, I'm right here again. I'm not sure what to think. Well, this commitment seems to have welcomed back David into the presence of his friend Jonathan and of Saul. Jonathan brings him back and evidently feels that Dad's sincere. Well, David was back at court. Being back at court, he did his usual role of being a servant to Saul. Whatever Saul needed, he was going to humbly try to do that, including playing for him, serving in the military, whatever he needed. And in verse 8, we have part of that again. And there was war again. And David went out and fought with the Philistines and slew them with a great slaughter, and they fled from him. Success. God continues to grant him success. Well, this time, there is no indication that Saul hoped that the Philistines would kill him. Remember, just previously, he was like, okay, I'm going to send them out here, and I'm going to hope that they take care of my problem for me. It doesn't indicate that, not in this situation. But God continues to bless David. He saw more success in his warring with the Philistines. Many were defeated, and those who weren't killed fled for their lives, as it says in the scriptures. God had truly grown the shepherd boy into a mighty warrior. As success and praise that goes with the military victories come again, however, the jealousy that was rooted in Saul's heart grows and bears more bitter fruit. And so point 4, after point 3, which was friend, is fail. Fail. Verse 9 says this, and the evil spirit from the Lord was upon Saul, and as he sat in his house with his javelin in his hand, and David played with his hand. As we remember, God helped and protection had been removed from Saul. So now he's got that anxiety. He's got having those issues come up again. He's disturbed. This opens up wide the door for Satan's influence to be at work in Saul's life. It's a very dark thing. Fear and anxiety again lead Saul to act in violent, irrational ways toward David. Turn, if you would, with me to Ephesians chapter 4. Ephesians chapter 4, we're going to look at verse 26 and 27 of Ephesians chapter 4. Ephesians chapter 4, starting with verse 26, it says this, be ye angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath, neither give place to the devil. So the pride and the anger that began to arise within Saul, he doesn't deal with it. He should know he was doing wrong. He should know that it was sin. He should know it was coming between him and God. It should have been dealt with, but he didn't. And so he, listen what it says, he gives place to the devil. I think this is a good time to think and consider when we do allow a stronghold to begin in our heart. That's our own choice. We need to recognize something that's happening. We need to recognize the infiltration of sinful thinking and sinful behaviors and confess and forsake and let God have the victory. So then Satan will not have that opportunity. God will give you the victory. Well, back to our scene here. Okay, so remember, David's all welcomed back, right? And he's probably there. He's played his harp. He's done that a little bit. Oh, okay, we need to have some war with the Philistines, so I want you to go out and fight with them a bit. Okay, yeah. He goes out, very successful, comes back and returns. So he's back there in the court again. A wonderful celebration time, right? And he's there as a servant, not as a guest, as a servant, playing the harp, right? Doing what is needed. It's a very beautiful scene. But I want to mention, don't look in Saul's face. It's a beautiful scene, but if you look in Saul's face, it may not be quite as beautiful. Well, there he was, Saul. He had his fidget in his hand, his javelin. He had that in his hand. Maybe he's twirling it. I don't know what he was really doing with it, but he had it in his hand. David is playing a beautiful song for all to enjoy, but especially for Saul to be at peace in his spirit and heart. Such humility, willingness to serve. One big problem, however, is that his heart that David is trying to comfort is not in tune to God. Saul's heart is not in tune to God. As you've seen the reminder, you've probably seen this phrase. Remember this? No Jesus, N-O, no Jesus, no peace. Okay, if you don't have Jesus in your heart, you have no peace, right? And then you remember the opposite of that was K-N-O, Jesus, no Jesus, no peace. We had two opposites right here. We had Saul, no Jesus, no peace, and we had David, no Jesus, no peace. Spelled differently, but it sounds very similar. Well, what we see is the peace that David has. Is he scared sitting there? I think he trusts God. Why was he willing to do this? He had a heart of humility. He had a heart of love, and he had a heart of trust in God. And I believe that's it. Let's look quickly at Psalm chapter 35. Psalm chapter 35, verse 13 and 14. Psalm 35, 13 and 14. As we know, many of the Psalms were written by David. And sometimes we've been able to nail down, historians have been able to nail down maybe when certain things were happening. But listen to this one very carefully. Psalm 35, verse 13 and 14 says this, "But as for me, when they were sick," in this case, let's think about Saul. He was having issues. "When they were sick, my clothing was sackcloth. I humbled my soul with fasting, and my prayer returned unto mine own bosom. I behaved myself as though he had been my friend or brother. I bowed down heavily as one that mourned for his mother." We see here such a loving, humble heart in David. Now, if you were to continue reading that psalm, you'll see what happens. This is how I treated him, and then this is how he came back at me. Well, we're not going to take the time to look at that, but if you want to, continue reading in Psalm 35 to see that. Well, this beautiful scene, it turns ugly in a second. We would have seen it coming if we had been looking at Saul's face. We have been watching Saul's, I already said that. It wasn't that David was playing the wrong song or that it was off key. It wasn't that at all. The pent-up anger and jealousy came out as quickly as Saul can raise the javelin to throw it. Perhaps David had been watching Saul's eyes, noticing the grasp. He's not playing with the javelin anymore. Now he's just grabbing it, holding it tightly. However this happened, God protected his servant. This attempt at David's life was real. The force behind Saul's throw was clearly meant to pin David to the wall. And look at the verse. It is in verse 10. And Saul sought to smite David even to the wall with the javelin. This, of course, is the second escape right here. But he slipped away out of Saul's presence, and he smote the javelin into the wall, and David fled and escaped that night. So there's a failure on the part of Saul. Well, now, the next point is the faithful. The faithful. And this is going to start in verse 11. Not everybody hates David. Not everybody's against him. Let's look at it. Verse 11 says this, Saul also sent messengers unto David's house. So this had just happened, and David flees. All right, guys, go look at his house. Let's find him. First of all, they're just going to watch the house. And the plan, of course, it says in verse 11, was to slay him in the morning. And Michal, David's wife, told him, saying, If thou save not thy life tonight, tomorrow thou shalt be slain. Saul was now renewing his order to his servants to kill David. They don't know what to think. He says, kill him. He says he's safe. Now he says, kill him again. Well, what are we supposed to think here? It's just a confusion. Well, the servants are evidently faithful, however, to Saul, as none seem to stand up for David. We know Jonathan's faithful to David. Now we're going to have a chance to see his wife, Michal, is also going to be faithful to David. But do you remember back in chapter 18 where it talked about that Saul said, you know what, this is great that Michal loves David. I'm going to let him marry her so she can be a snare to him. And then now look what his daughter's doing, helping out David. And it's just interesting to see how God works all these things. Look now at verse 12. So Michal let David down through a window, and he went and fled and escaped. She takes an active role in, listen, rebelling against her father's rash and violent commands. This took love for her husband and a boldness. She knows what Saul is capable of. Because as a faithful wife, David does escape Saul's third attempt to kill him. There's the third escape right there. Verse 13, and Michal took an image and laid it in the bed and put a pillow of goat's hair for his bolster and covered it with cloth. Michal buys some time. She has a trick up her sleeve. After David escapes, Michal attempts to fool the enemy by creating a dummy in the bed. You've seen this on a show probably. Interesting what Barnes says about this. Here's what he says. The word image that was used is teraphim, an image or bust in human form, and as large as life, of a kind of household god, to the worship of which the Israelites, and especially the women, were much addicted. Well, that's an interesting thought. So we see even in the house of David, there was some little trouble. You know, his wife was being faithful to him here, but it seems that she might have had a little bit of trouble with her relationship with God. Well, we also see that Saul is not waiting for David to come out of his place, but is now going to actively pursue him. In verse 14, they go in, they're going to check the bed. In verse 14, it says this, and when Saul sent messengers to take David, okay, don't wait for him, just go in, take him. And she said, oh, he's sick. He's not feeling well today. Okay, well, that, any normal person, if someone's sick, they're going to leave him alone, right? I mean, it might be contagious, but either way, you feel bad for him, right? So the messengers return. They're going to say, you know what? He's not feeling well today. Let's kill him tomorrow. I don't know. I'm not quite sure how it is, but, once again, we have an instance where she's trying to protect her husband, all nonetheless lying at the same time. And Saul sent the messengers again to see David, saying, bring him to me in bed. I don't care if he's sick. that I may slay him. Sick or not, he's going to be dead. It's not going to matter. Well, not to be denied, the messengers are sent again. No mercy on the sick guy. Sick and all, contagious or not, bring him to me. That's Saul speaking here. I'm going to pin him to, I couldn't pin him to the wall, but I'm going to pin him to his bed, right? He wanted to bring the sick man to him and let him be dead. Saul is just desperate. He is desperate to have David out of the way. And when the messengers, this is in verse 16, and when the messengers were come in, behold, there was an image in the bed and a pillow of goat's hair for the bolster. And Saul said unto Michal, why have you deceived me and sent away mine enemy that he has escaped? And here again, Michal, she's gotten a little deceptive here, really. And Michal answered Saul, he said unto me, let me go. Why should I kill thee? That's not what he said. But once again, she's standing in front of her dad, knowing what he's like, and probably a little bit frightened of him, having probably, if she hadn't seen the javelin just now being thrown at David, she'd heard about it. She had definitely heard about it. So within 24 hours, this is now, it's gotten desperate. It's gotten really scary. Now she stands before this guy, and she lies. She does. Well, this is one for self-preservation, making it out as if David's idea had been, I'm going to kill you if you don't let me go. But of course, we know that that was not the truth. Did she share the same faith as David? I have to wonder. And of course, we're going to see Michal again in the future, and we're going to wonder, what is her exact relationship with God? Well, now, the last point here is futility, the futility. That's going to start with verse 18 and go on through the end of the chapter here, the futility. This is also going to be the fourth escape. And this is just, it just kind of makes you smile, makes you laugh, what happens in this instance. All right, starting with verse 18. So David fled and escaped and came to Samuel to Ramah and told him all that Saul had done to him. And it was quite a bit to tell, right? Probably quite an emotional time. Like, this is what this guy's doing to me. You said I'm going to be king? Are you sure? Am I going to live another day? Well,